Hello everybody, this is Sadet Marshall from The Illustrated Egg, and some of you who follow me on Instagram or on Facebook know that recently that I was replenishing my supply of paste paper, which I make at home, and I don't do it for commercial sales, but I definitely do it for my own bookmaking, because a few years ago, when I discovered paste paper, I also discovered making my own sketchbooks. So a few years have gone by, my paste paper supply had kind of worn out, so I decided it was time to commit a little bit of time to replenishing that supply, and I just wanted to share a few of my paste paper ideas with you, some tools that I use that I just found around the house and that you can use if you want to give paste paper a try as well. I strongly encourage it because it's a lot like adult finger painting. It's really, really fun. It's really relaxing. It's a little bit messy, but we're all washable, right? So let me show you a few of my paste paper samples, some of the tools I use, and some of the journals that I've made using the paste paper over the years. So this is an example of a sheet of paste paper, and typically I will use a slightly heavier paper. This is all leftover print baking paper that I had from college about 30 years ago, so it's just been sitting around. But I don't use, occasionally I'll use just printer paper, but this time I used, what is this, 15 by 30? No, it's 15 by 22 sheets of printmaking paper. And because that's how big my counter is. I don't have a whole lot of space, so this sheet is not terribly big. And it's enough to probably make a front and a back cover of a sketchbook. But this is just using a spatter technique combined with a comb technique, combined with just running my fingers through the paste. And when you do paste paper, you just paint your paste down, your pigmented paste down on the paper, and then run something through it that's going to create some type of visual interest or visual texture. So I like to use combs, I like to use just spatter, and I like to use my fingers. I also like to stamp, and I also like to stencil. So this is an example of the comb technique and the finger technique put together. So stenciling, sometimes I just use torn up pieces of paper to just tear it up, lay it down, use a brush to tamp around it like you would any other stencil. Lay as many pieces as you want. On top of the base color, if you look at this piece, there's some combing going through initially, and then I use the brush on top of that for additional layers. And you can make some interesting patterns that way. And then I also went out to my yard and got some bamboo and just used bamboo as the stencil on this one. And you can kind of see the comb texture. See it? I really like using the comb texture to break up the solid pattern or the solid solidity of that initial painting on of the pigment. And I'll use just, regular, I think this is a flea comb. This is like, just an old hair comb. And you can use like wider combs like this, or you can cut up the edges of a credit card and create your own combs. You can use texture combs that you get from the hardware store, wood graining combs and that kind of thing. I'm a little, find what you have at home and use it kind of person, so that's what I use. And then I also like to use empty rolls of tape. So sometimes you get, like, your tape runs out and you have that nice cardboard center and it's real sturdy. And I just will use that for some of that kind of texture. You can see this combing in there, and there's the edge of a credit card with some of these stripes. This piece has quite a few different tape roll sizes in it. Really, really nice. And then this one was made by stamping using, I think this is the thing that you put between your toes when you paint your toenails. But just stamping that repeatedly over the surface, and it's been combed first. And then sometimes I'll just stamp using carved stamps, and I had a lino cutter that I got a few years ago, and I just have it wetted over this little disc thing, glued to a piece of wood, a block of wood, and I'll just repeat stamp this lotus pattern on the paper. And the same thing with this one. This one was a more like a, I don't know, parsley leaf or something leaf. And you can see the combing texture in the background with the parsley, or the leaf, the leaf stamped on top of it. And this is one of my favorite things to use that you just find around the house, and it's an empty spool of thread. And you just apply the pigment on this surface and use that to stamp, and it just makes, I just love that you never know exactly what it's going to look like until you stamp it. And here's a finished book that I had made a few years back that has the spool of thread used, and I just love this cover. This book, oh, this book is not used yet. It's still empty. So, but I just love the way that pattern works using the spool of thread. Okay, and then this is just repeated stamping using rubber stamps that I carve. And these are just Dollar Tree erasers, and I just carve them, and they're good, you know, for your regular mixed media stuff, but I think it worked really great with this paste paper too, just repeating the pattern all through it, and that overlaid on top of comb texture too. So it's just a very nice, simple approach. And then this is just straight commercial stencil, but kind of layered with different colors, and then just changing the direction. So it's a lot like the paper stencil earlier, but much more recognizable lettering in there. This one was a stamp that I made out of ice cream spoons, wooden ice cream spoons. You can see there's some texture at the very bottom layer, and then the different colors kind of built up on top of it, just keep it interesting and flowing. So those are some of my paste papers that are from this new batch. And so the reason I got into paste paper was a few years ago, when I was an art student, nobody ever talked about sketchbooks. So very few art students carried them, but I would, you know, journal and sketch in these black, either cloth bound or this kind of fake leather bound, you know, black heavy thing. This is like a 9x12. And then I graduated to a slightly smaller size, but a lot of words. It was very, very word driven, and the spiral bound let my pages lie flatter, but the spiral kind of keeps your stack of things from sitting on top of each other really well. So I started to get more interested in art journaling, and the reason for that was this book, Breakfast Journal. My husband gave it to me, and it's by Carrie Smith, and it really encourages you to just throw conservation out the window. It's just really about making as big a mess as you can, breaking all the rules. I did not do very well fulfilling all of them. Some of them, you know, I was very tentative with, but it got the wheels turning, I must say, and it made me want to try working on mixed media rather than just on drawing paper. And mixed media just has a heavier weight paper, and this one is a very inexpensive volume and spiral bound still, and you can see the covers falling off. But I just kind of went nuts and started, you know, developing, you know, overcoming some of the trepidations that I had about what a journal should be, what it should look like, what it should feel like, and all that kind of thing. And so right around the time I was working in this book and exploring, I saw the Paulus Berenson video where he talks about his paste paper workshops and making journals, because making your own books kind of connect you, you know, to the journal more and to the journal experience more. And so these are some of the ones that I've made, and they're all Coptic stitch, and they're all paste paper covered. So they will all have paste paper covers that I've made. I love that you can see the signatures or the groupings of pages through the Coptic stitching. I can tell this one's well loved and well used. You can see all the ink and the paint in there. Like this new one, see how pristine that is by comparison, and see how much fatter the book gets when you really use it. But it gives you a beautiful cover, a beautiful interest. This is a paste paper that has this really shell-like texture, and that's made with a bottle cap. And I would just press a bottle cap in and rotate it like this, and it would make this beautiful pattern. And I just love that texture. This one is made with just moving a credit card edge through the paste. Here's another one with that screw-like wheel texture and spatter. So I really like that one. And this one has toned mixed media paper in it. So the mixed media has become really, really satisfying for me to work with, because I know that that's kind of a weight of paper that'll hold like the paint and everything that I really work with. And so it's allowed my journaling to really connect to me, and it's really become fun and really fun to make these books. So, you know, paste paper can be really plain, but not plain. Here's some of my bigger journals. Again, Coptic stitched. And then sometimes, you know, you have some paste paper that maybe is kind of meh. It doesn't really visually excite you. So what I end up doing is cutting them into strips. And then I'll weave the strips together. And look, it just gets so much more interesting, right? So you can take some really, this is obviously a well-loved book, but you can take some really mediocre sort of pieces of paste paper and weave them together and get something completely rockin', right? This one I love because it's kind of irregular. Yeah. This one too. Woo woo. This one's like a Martian moonscape, and this is like the flea comb run through the paste and then bubble wrap pressed into it. But it's just got this really cool, mysterious, ghostly look to it. And then this is one of my bigger sketchbooks, so my paste paper wasn't big enough to make two covers, so I used a different one for the front and the back. But this again is just that kind of combing technique where you're pulling the edge of a credit card or something through the paste to make these patterns and just give the whole thing a bunch of energy. So that's I'm looking forward to making more because making them kind of encouraged me to use them too. You know, you just kind of fall in love with it, and you just get so excited by the juiciness of the process and connecting to the materials and connecting to what you're going to put into it and the ideas that you kind of get going, you know. And then the blank pages aren't so scary anymore. But so go ahead and give bookmaking a try. Give making paste paper a try. Paste paper covers, aren't they just attractive? I mean, if you can't afford a whole lot of sketchbooks, you know, I wait for the paper part to go on sale, and then I'll go get a 2-for-1 deal or something, and then my paste papers make the covers. So I just, you know, I don't have to buy journals anymore. I just make them. So see where your journey takes you. But just wanted to show you a couple of things from my journaling journey. Paste paper or no. And we'll talk to you again when there's more of these too. Maybe I'll share some of the contents of these one of these days. All right, everybody, take care. Bye.